Next, we're going to move on to some expressions. So these are some expressions you will see in the story itself. And we're going to just talk about why they're used. So we can see, first of all, the flickering glow of the phone in his hand. So this is visual imagery. It creates atmosphere and symbolizes isolation. We get the feeling of the darkness in the room, and the only sense of sort of warmth or comfort seems to emanate from the phone. So this creates a sort of creepy, lonely image of Max sitting in his bedroom staring at his phone. Next up, we have the expression, a hypnotic lullaby of distraction. So this is a metaphor. It compares the phone's videos to a lullaby, something that would normally put you to sleep. And in this case, it's something that is soothing, but also traps you. So whilst what he's doing on his phone isn't particularly stimulating, he can't seem to stop doing it. So it's not like he's doing anything particularly engaging. He's just passively receiving content. And despite this, he can't seem to put it down, and he seems to be in some kind of trance. So this kind of imagery is used to talk about the element of addiction and the element of almost this mesmeric, hypnotic feeling that he is experiencing, that he can't seem to escape from. The next expression, like a ravenous zombie, he hungered insatiably for content. So this is an example of a simile, like a ravenous zombie. So it's comparing Max and his social media addiction, his content addiction, to be very similar to the way that a mindless zombie would ravenously consume human flesh. But instead of consuming human flesh, he's insatiably consuming content. So we use this kind of language to express the fact that he is completely addicted and cannot really stop consuming content. There's an endless amount of content, and he just keeps gobbling it all up for hours and hours and hours. And he's not learning anything. He's not even really being stimulated, which is where we get the imagery of the zombie, the mindless zombie that just goes towards the thing it wants without really thinking about it, because it's a completely mindless animal. The next expression here is another hour had passed into obscurity. So this is another example of a metaphor for time disappearing unnoticed. So when we talk about an hour passing into obscurity, obscurity is the state of something being hidden or unknown. So what we're saying here is that if Max were to think about what he's done for the last hour or the hour before that, he wouldn't really be able to tell you. He hasn't done anything but stare at his phone, and he probably doesn't even remember any of the videos he's watched. This next expression is tiredness enveloped him like a shroud. So this is a simile which foreshadows death and hopelessness. Now, a shroud is something, it's something that you wear, or something that is put on you when you die. So it's something that you are buried in. So when we talk about someone being wrapped up like a shroud, it's a deliberate use of a noun associated with death or associated with hopelessness. And we do this deliberately because we want to kind of subtly imply that Max's tiredness is kind of killing him. Now, it's not literally killing him, but it's kind of killing his personality. It's kind of destroying his brain to a point where he's unable to really concentrate on anything, unable to think about anything properly. He's just kind of become this mindless consumer. So we use language like this to sort of give some sort of portent of doom or hopelessness or fear, or to create a gloomy sort of atmosphere. This is the reason we don't say tiredness enveloped him like a sweater or a jumper, because if we were to say that, it would sound quite cozy and quite nice. So a shroud is something scary and macabre. The next expression is the sound vibrated in his skull, pounding like a heartbeat. So this is an example of sensory imagery. So the reason the sound pounds through his skull like a heartbeat is designed to sort of illuminate the fact that his heart is racing, and this is due to the anxiety and fear that the sound is creating within him. So it's almost like a racing heartbeat, which is a portent of potential danger. So you'll notice that in horror movies, when there's a moment of tension or something looming round the corner, something about to jump out, if you listen carefully, you'll hear a very subtle heartbeat. And they do this all the time in horror movies. They have a little heartbeat in the background, and usually that heartbeat might be getting faster, or it's already going quite fast as it is. And the idea behind that is to try to make your heartbeat quicken as you become more anxious and afraid of whatever the danger is. The next expression is eyes vacant, mouths slightly open. Now, you'll notice, of course, this is visual imagery. We have the image of the eyes, which are not really focused on anything and are not really paying attention to anything important, and mouths slightly open, suggesting an almost trance-like state. But what you'll also notice is that this sentence is very succinct. It just says eyes vacant, mouths slightly open. It doesn't say their eyes were vacant and their mouths were slightly open. What this is designed to do is just to punch in the imagery very quickly. Eyes vacant, mouths slightly open, to try to get you to envision what these people looked like very quickly, and to bring that image to the forefront of your mind straight away. The next expression is sweat leaked down the side of his temples and his stomach tied itself in knots. So what we've got here is a very physical description of anxiety. So when we're feeling very scared, very anxious, we may begin sweating even when we're not hot, and we may also start to feel the blood leaving our stomach and entering different parts of our body in case we need to run or fight. And this is quite a common and familiar physical manifestation of anxiety or fear. So what we're doing here is just describing what Max is feeling physically so that we can show the anxiety he is feeling emotionally. Another example of this is in the following expression: hands moist and eyes raw. This is another visual description of how Max is feeling, a physical description of how he is feeling. So when your hands are moist, that's usually because of nervousness, fear, anxiety. And if your eyes are raw, it suggests he's very, very tired and has probably been awake for longer than he should have been, probably due to fear and paranoia. The next expression, shadows danced as they moved deeper into the darkness. This is an example of something called anthropomorphic personification. So the shadows danced. What that means is basically that the shadows were moving about almost as if they're alive, almost as if they have a will of their own. So this creates this imagery of a living, palpable darkness that's sort of moving around you as you move further and further into that dark realm. So this intensifies the suspense and shows that Max is moving into a place which is dangerous, a place where he will not be safe, and a place where he won't be able to see anything except dancing shadows which he can't really understand or see properly. The next expression is a description of brain rot. So it says, his bulging brain swollen with the psyches of thousands of lost souls. So this is an example of grotesque imagery and a metaphor for digital overconsumption. So not only at the beginning here we're getting a description of what the monster itself looks like with this big bulging, pulsating, swollen brain. But in the second half of the sentence, we have a reason for why the brain is swollen and bulging, and that's because there are the psyches or the minds or the souls, if you prefer, of thousands of people that brain rot has affected and absorbed into himself. So this is a good metaphor for basically the thousands or possibly millions of people in our society right now who have been completely taken in by misinformation on the internet or addiction to low quality content, and in place of that they've sort of surrendered their own personality, their own individualism, and now they just passively consume content rather than sort of creating anything new. And so this effectively is the manifestation of that in the form of this bulging, swollen brain on this horrendous monster that continually changes form. This next expression is something that's repeated a few times at the beginning of the video. Just one more video. Just one more video. Now this is repeated again and again to symbolize the addiction that Max has to his phone and to the endless stream of content that he watches. And you'll also notice that later on the words TikTok, TikTok are repeated again and again and again. And this is a very similar sort of use of repetition, which is in that case to express the fact that the monster is coming for him, and that he has limited time before before brain rot consumes him. And it's also, when we're talking about TikTok, it's also a not so subtle jab at the social media app TikTok itself. And you'll notice as well that the colours that sort of surround brain rot are very similar to the colours used for TikTok. So this use of repetition is quite good in storytelling because it helps to sort of reinforce this idea of doom or addiction or obsession. So just one more video, just one more video, TikTok, TikTok, TikTok. These can be used to sort of drill home this feeling of hopelessness or doom. The next expression here is the feed never ended and his appetite never faded. So we've got the repetition of the word never here, and this is quite simply a metaphor linking social media and endless hunger to reinforce the idea of addiction and the fact that despite the fact that there is endless amounts of content, it doesn't matter how much of it he consumes, he's always going to be hungry for more. The next expression is brain rot will come for you. So this is mentioned a few times in the story. It might be something like brain rot comes in 7 days, or brain rot's coming for you, or I'm coming for you, Max, or something like that. This is just a simple use of personification, talking about how the monster will consume you, because the simple metaphor here is that whilst we believe we are consuming social media content, it's actually the content that's consuming us. And there's an old saying that says, if you're getting something for free, if you're getting a product for free, it's because you are the product. So ultimately what the Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, algorithms are doing is they're feeding off us by feeding our addiction to content. They're harvesting information about us and they're showing us adverts, which of course they get paid for. So essentially, brain rot, or the social media addiction metaphor that brain rot personifies, is consuming people. Brain rot is consuming you rather than you consuming the content. This next expression, he feeds on your fear and your mind, is a simple metaphor for how attention-based media consumes mental energy. Now, companies like TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and whichever other social media companies there are out there, what they're looking for is engagement. So they want you to engage. They don't really care what you're engaging with that much. And the things that we engage with the most are things that make us angry and things that make us scared, which is a bit of a shame, really. I mean, if we engaged with things that make us happy or things that make us laugh, then the social media feeds would be full of funny things and pictures of cute kittens and stuff like that. But the reality is that the most viewed videos and the most engaged with content is stuff that makes you very, very angry, or stuff that makes you very, very afraid. And quite often they're one in the same thing, because quite often when we're angry about something, it's because we're scared of it. Behind that anger is some fear. So he feeds on your fear and your mind. The idea that this brain rot demon feeds on your fear and your mind is basically the idea that you are engaging with something you're afraid of, and through that they're pulling you into this world of addiction and misinformation, and that's consuming your mind and making you believe all sorts of paranoid nonsense that's out there. And the thing with brain rot as well is that I wouldn't say that the character in this story is actually evil. I would say that this character is completely indifferent, because brain rot doesn't care whether you are afraid of it. It doesn't care whether you hate it. It doesn't care whether you love it. It doesn't care whether you worship it. It's completely indifferent, and it's very much the same with social media feeds. They don't care whether you're engaging with stuff that makes you angry, or if you're engaging with videos of cute puppies rolling around on the floor. It doesn't matter. As long as you're engaging, then it will be harvesting your information. We will fight him, we will defeat him, and we will survive. So this is a use of freeze. Okay, so, and you'll notice this if you watch any sort of speech given by politicians over the years throughout history, they always speak in freeze. So they'll say things like strength, honor, unity, or something like that. They never do it in twos, they never do it in fours, it's always in freeze. And this is kind of ritualistic, cult-like language. For some reason, the language center in our brain just loves freeze. Things seem stronger when they come in freeze. So this expression here is very pleasing to the brain. We will fight him, we will defeat him, and we will survive. It sounds powerful, but the truth is it's actually this kind of language which is used by dictators and despots and cult leaders because they want to sound more powerful and more convincing. So it's actually portending the fact that the person who says this is leading Max into a trap. Another example of the use of freeze is in this sentence. It is a primal evil, ancient and powerful. So we've got primal, ancient, powerful, three adjectives used to describe brain rot. Now this use of language is also sort of mythical in its diction, and it kind of frames it as if brain rot is part of not just a social media addiction problem, but something that's much bigger and a timeless corruption that's existed for a long time. And that's true to an extent, because social media addiction may be a new thing, but misinformation and disinformation and people believing in conspiracies and things like that predates social media and has been around for thousands of years. Once again, this is the use of freeze and also kind of expressing that this is part of something much bigger than it initially appears to be. Everyone who engages with Brainrot helps it to spread. So this expression is the final moral of the story, really, which is that it doesn't matter if you try to fight Brainrot or you argue against something you've seen on the internet. Anything that you do, whether you share it, whether you get angry, whether you love it, whether you hate it, whatever it is, if you engage with it, with the information you've seen on the internet, it will spread. So if you see something on the internet that you really strongly disagree with, and you know to be inaccurate or misleading or an outright lie, when you comment on it, to try to say that this is not true, this is incorrect, it may convince a few people, but the chances are that many, many more people are going to see the video because it's going to be bumped up in the ratings, and more people will see it, and they won't read your individual comment. They will see what the original thing is saying. And this is how people are able to spread misinformation very quickly, because they know that a certain portion of the people who see the misinformation will argue against it, and that will actually help the misinformation to spread further. So how do we stop that from happening? Well, first thing to do is, if you see something that's dangerously incorrect, so dangerous misinformation, medical misinformation, things like that, report it, and then just simply disengage. Click the thumbs down button, or click the I don't want to see this button, or whatever it is on whatever platform you're using, and ignore it. And then that means you'll be shown less of that sort of stuff. But it also means that that video will fall in the rankings because people are not engaging with it as much. This final expression: there's only one way to truly defeat Brainrot: ignore him. So once again, this is a moral statement and an allegory about viral media, very similar to the previous expression that says everyone who engages with Brainrot helps it to spread. It's also an ironic resolution, showing that resistance is disengagement. So if you want to resist or fight against Brainrot, the thing to do is simply ignore it, as Jonas advises Max to do. Just ignore it. It's a silly video. And it's quite the same in the world of social media. If you see something that you disagree with, or something you don't like, or something that makes you angry, or something that makes you scared, something that upsets you, the best thing to do is just simply ignore it. Click that thumbs down, click the thumbs down icon, or the I don't want to see this thing, or whatever it is, or just turn it off and get rid of it, or block whoever's sharing it. And when enough people do that, that video starts to fall and disappear, and whoever's making it realizes that this kind of content isn't going to make them any money. If you share it, if you comment on it, no matter how good-hearted your comment may be, or you might be trying to show people that this is incorrect, it just simply helps to spread it even further, unfortunately. So to resist the spread of misinformation, there are a few things you can do. One is report any dangerous misinformation. Ignore things that are just meaningless content, meaningless drivel that shouldn't really exist on the internet. Just ignore it, downvote it, or whatever, and you'll stop being shown it. The third thing is sign up to things that you do want to see. Follow people you do want to see. Follow DIY tips. Follow plants, gardening tips. Follow pictures of puppies rolling on the floor and cats knocking stuff off tables. All of that is great. It's great content. But in terms of actually dealing with junk content and things that are spreading around on social media that are designed to make people scared and angry and all of that, the best thing to do is to simply ignore it and to train yourself on critical thinking and train others on critical thinking too, so that they understand that not everything you read on the internet is true, and that a lie gets halfway around the world before the truth has got its pants on. Okay, thank you.